Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Dominika Vallet, and I'm the president of the foundation supporting hashtag OMGKRK, which is like a community of that is facilitating the growth of innovation ecosystem in Krakow and in Małopolska in general. And we love to arrange this type of sessions, mainly because we want to support this matchmaking activities between the key decision makers in our country and also obviously here locally that are exchanging knowledge and building relationships towards like obviously even faster growth than that you're able to achieve thanks to those sessions. So thank you so much for joining us at this early hour, and I'm happy to have the international member of our community here that will be sharing their experience in terms of growth. So Saman, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. Like usually we start with like a brief introduction with one of the key speakers here, but this is like a very interactive session and also a place for you to utilize it for your benefit. So like, please make sure to address after the short introduction your questions towards our expert and also all other members that are here to encourage the knowledge sharing and experience sharing, because this is something that like a floor for you to exchange those experiences. So the floor is yours. Someone take those several minutes of initial knowledge sharing, and I will later on maybe dig deeper and encourage others to also ask some additional questions. So welcome again, and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Dominika. Thanks, Paul. So my name is Saman. Call me Sam. It's easier on the tongue. And just a little bit about me. I'm British Iraqi. I'm originally Iraqi. Born and raised in London. My family relocated to Dubai in 1996. And I was roughly 10 years old. You can do the math and find out my age. And I've been here ever since. That said, my Arabic is very weak. Dubai is a very modern and diverse city. And it's the type of city where you can get by without knowing the sort of Arabic language. And I've been here ever since. I grew up here, went to college in California. My specialty is information systems. That's what I graduated in. Came back to the UAE. We're talking roughly 2009, worked in a family business, architecture and engineering, where I did a lot of digital transformation in the architecture space, then went through a string of startups. Now the startup ecosystem was really building up in Dubai around 2011 and 12. Even the VCs were startups to a certain extent. And went through a lot of failures, some successes, and then eventually we founded Kitopia with my 3 other partners. And then the rest is history. So I did prepare a presentation to walk us through. Shall I go ahead and start?
Yes, go ahead. You have the share a screen option like at the very bottom, like this green arrow. So feel free to use that. And we're looking forward to.
I'm assuming you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
So this is a short video, just a
Kitopia is the world's
minute and a half. I'll introduce you to what Kitopia is. Just gonna put play.
leading managed cloud kitchen platform. We operate global brands in our state-of-the-art located all over the MENA region. Tech-powered and customer-obsessed, we're on a mission to satisfy the world's appetite, and we're going to show you how. We have a world-class supply chain of high-quality dry food, fresh food, and other various products that are stored fresh and safe in our warehouses and then delivered to our central kitchens, where the overnight prep work takes place, such as cutting, marination, and the portioning of each of the items, that are then delivered to state-of-the-art satellite kitchens located all over our cities. A customer can place an order through an aggregator, the brand's website, or by phone. Thanks to our smart kitchen operating system, the order routes to the kitchen closest to the customer and distributes the orders to the assigned section in the kitchen. For example, if a customer orders sushi, noodles, and a Coke, the sushi goes to the cold section, the noodles goes to the hot section, and the coke to the dry. It is packed, labeled, and sent over to the assembly unit via our conveyors to dispatch, where orders are safely and securely packaged for delivery all in under 8 minutes, with a driver delivering it to the customer in less than 35 minutes, in an end-to-end customer experience rivaling that of dine-in restaurants. Join us on our mission to satisfy the world's appetite.
So the audio of that video is my sister. It always feels a little odd hearing it from my end.
Oh, that's nice to hear. Like nice background story.
So just a little bit about what we do and what we stand for. Kitopi is on a mission to satisfy the world's appetite. And what we do is we essentially scale food, right? Those are two words that were rarely used together. It takes close to 6 months for a restaurant to establish an independent outlet and to expand their presence. With Kitopi, they tap into an existing infrastructure that we have built up. That infrastructure consists of a supply chain, kitchens, equipped kitchens, equipped down to the cooks that have been well trained. They tap into that so that they can actually scale their brand's presence. What we actually do is, in another way, is license out their food. We call this franchisee 2.0 because we're franchising out their brand, and we're doing it really fast because they're tapping out of existing infrastructure. They can be expanded in less than 2 to 3 weeks for a delivery-only location. And our vision right below is delivering exceptional food on your terms. And for us, we speak to the consumer, and what exceptional food on your terms means is making sure that it's accessible to them across the variety of kitchens that we have that provide speedy delivery, and that it is convenient. And then finally, that it is of high quality. We revolve around speed. When we say convenient, the need for speed is becoming more and more when it comes to food. People expect their food in even under 30 minutes. So how did this all start? All right. Now, a little bit about my early sort of startup years. The first startup I started was roughly around 2012, and that was My Metro Talk. It was a lifestyle solution. It essentially equipped people with the ability to find things to do based on their mood. So you can say casual with friends, and you'd get tailored solutions. And it was one of the first startups to be incubated in the UAE. The UAE has an incubation program called the N5 that supports startups, similar to what you guys do here with OMG. And I got in, and I got a lot of publicity, but eventually I realized I wasn't really solving a core problem. At one point, I realized that I wasn't even using the solution, and eventually it dwindled down. And then after that, I stayed in the event space. In the lifestyle space, I ended up building a SaaS tool for event organizers. This was called Central Tickets. I saw some success with that solution. It enabled local event organizers in the UAE, and these were very niche organizers, grassroots. So this was grandma's knitting down to boxing workshops and pop-up events that were emerging around the city. It enabled them to manage those events, to sell tickets online. This is similar to the Eventbrite of the US, but it was localized to the region. Had about 250 organizers at its peak, went through some challenges scaling it or building it up in the UAE. Some of them were legal challenges at the time. Eventually, I sold it to one of the organizers on the platform, and they used it to manage their own events. And then after that, this was a fairly random startup at the time, but I ended up partnering with my friend, and we ended up building a baby e-commerce site called Little Bedu. And this was an actual physical product that was being sold online. It was traditional clothing for babies and toddlers. So think of the Arab wear, the kanduras that you're probably aware of, but it was tailored to young babies between the age of 0 to 3. That did very well. One thing I learned from that is that babies sell, and that continues to grow till today. I was actually in between that when the opportunity of Kitopi came up. Now, how was Kitopi founded? My partner, the CEO, he was really the driving inception of its concept. His name is Mohammed Balut, Mo for short. And he was on his own journey. Him and his brother had started what had become the largest confectionery business in the Middle East. This confectionery business is essentially a massive chocolate factory. If you're having chocolates in the MENA region, the chances are they played a role in its production, whether it's just a raw material or the actual full-fledged production of that chocolate. And they had built it to a very large organization over 7 years, over $100 million in value. And he had exited. So he was 29 years old, and he had exited his shares. He had sold his stake in that business, and he was sitting on a lot of cash, and he went into sort of semi-retirement mode. Now I know Mohammed because we went to the same high school in Dubai. He was born and raised here, and in '96 we were in the same school. So I've known him. He's a very good friend that I've known most of my life. And at the time, he said, "I'm going to be an investor," and he started doing some seed investments and investing in different startups. And eventually, one of those companies he was looking at was an actual restaurant. Right? They had a restaurant of an interesting concept. They had been around for some time. And he had looked at their P&L. He had perceived that they were doing well, but the closer he looked at their P&L, they had several independent dine-in locations across the city. The closer he looked at their economics, the more he saw a problem forming. And the issue was that the food delivery sector had become such a significant size of their demand. It had actually shifted their dine-in customers. They had less dine-in customers and more food delivery customers, and that changed the entire economics of their business, because food delivery comes with some catches, right? You pay some pretty hefty commission fees to the aggregators that sell, and these are the Deliveroos and the Uber Eats of this world, and those economics become very tough when you take the traditional economics of a typical restaurant business, and it had become very challenging to operate them out of these locations that weren't structured for the efficiency of catering to food delivery orders. So at that point, he looked at it and he realized that this is a big problem. These businesses aren't going to do too well, and a lot of them were closing down. And we started seeing good restaurants close down, good restaurants that were offering good food. And at the same time, the cloud kitchen ecosystem was forming, and there was a lot occurring in the West. There were shared kitchen models that were appearing, that were solving part of the problem, not the full issue. And these include Uber. For example, Uber's founder, Travis, has started a big one called Cloud Kitchens, and there were quite a few actually forming. Now, what these guys were doing with their cloud kitchen is they were just taking non-prime real estate, repurposing it out as a kitchen. They were fitting it out as a kitchen, and they were leasing it as a cost-effective means of expansion. But you see, that was only optimizing for the rental overhead when you looked at their cost drivers. So this was a really interesting part, because right there, Mohammed had made a parallel between the restaurant sector and his old sort of experience in the chemistry kitchen. I mean, in the confectionery business, in the chocolate factory. You see, if you and I were building a chocolate bar, if we were going to come up with a chocolate brand, we're not going to go build a factory to produce that item. We were going to go tap into an existing party to capitalize on their economies of scale and their purchasing power, companies like B&B. And because they had better bulk purchasing power, he said, why can't we do the same in the food delivery sector? Why can't we consolidate? Why can't we consolidate the ingredients, consolidate the labor, and really capitalize on shared resources so that we can drive better economics? And that's where the idea of Kitopi was formed. Now, we were on a trip at the time. We were actually in California, and this wasn't the first idea that Mo had thrown out there. He's had tons of ideas, and we used to usually debate them and squash most of them. Why would he float them a lot by me? Because I had so many failures under my belt. So I always say I can tell you what not to do, and I can help you try to figure out what we should do. And this was one of them. And we were on this trip, and he was floating it, and we had. It was a really exciting model, this notion of scaling restaurants, being able to tap into an infrastructure, appear really quickly, bring the foods that people want from their hometowns. And we said, this is really, really interesting. Now, on that trip, we had a bunch of assumptions that needed testing, right? We were thinking, would people share their recipes over to us? Grandma's secret sauce, I'm going to give it over to you, a total stranger. And then this notion of, can it cook across multiple brands, right? Would that be overwhelming? How would we control quality? And there were all these, can we change ingredients and really leverage better purchasing power? But we came back to Dubai after that trip with the willingness to test this out. We said, this is this could be a game changer. This is really transforming. No one was doing anything like it globally. So there was no benchmark to look at. And we said, let's do it. So we ended up raising like a very small round. This was very much friends and families. And we took a kitchen in the sort of industrial part of Dubai. And then we began testing that concept. The first restaurants that came on board were very much people that trusted us, that knew us. These were people that we knew in the restaurant ecosystem. They said, hey, I'm serving this side of town. I really want to reach out to that side of town, but I don't have the capital to do so. And we said, hey, we're building out this infrastructure and we can work together. Now, the way the business model worked is that we essentially incur all the operational costs, right? And what the brand gets, we license out the brand and we essentially give them a royalty fee. Now, this is a 10 to 13% royalty fee that we give them for licensing out their brand. The revenue is ours. We essentially give them 10 to 13%. The wastage, the supply chain, the procurement, all that is done by us. We handle the entire end-to-end operations. The brand makes a commitment to market. They're responsible to spend on marketing and to get their word out there. But beyond that, and they pay a one-time fee, which depends on a variety of factors, including how many kitchens we're launching them in. And then essentially they just handle menu innovation while we take care of the operational pain point. And that's really the biggest pain point when it comes to restaurants expansion. It's building out the supply chain. It's building out the team. That's where they suffer the most. So what is Kitopi? What does this stand for? It stands for Kitchen Utopia. It's this notion of the ideal kitchen, the ideal kitchen with the ideal processes, the ideal standards, the ideal technology and equipment that enables great food, that delivers a great consumer experience. And over the 3 years, we've grown aggressively. We're among the fastest growing startup coming out of the region. We are the first movers in this as a managed kitchen as a service. And this is what our trajectory has looked like. We launched January 2018. That trip I was telling you about where we were conceptualizing the idea, that was mid 2017. January 2018, we dropped what we were doing and we like, let's start. By April, we had about 100 employees. In November, we had raised our first round, where we raised about $27 million. And then March, we were 500, we continued growing. In the first year was essentially the UAE, where we were in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And then right towards the end of 2018, that's where I went out to Poland and started building out our tech team. That's where Marcin, our VP of engineering, I know he's on this call, joined us. And we started building our tech abilities. By May 2019, we had entered another market. It was Kuwait, right? A massive food hub in the MENA region. And by August, we had expanded to Saudi Arabia, Riyadh, starting with. September, we were 1,000 employees. February, we raised a very large round, one of the biggest in the region, $60 million. And then by March, we had opened up a vertical, Shop Kitopi, where we actually started catering groceries. Now, you can probably coincide this with the pandemic. We saw a massive opportunity there to actually open up our supply chain to consumers. And then by January, we were over 1,500, and March, we're over 2,000 employees now. And when you look at these employees, at least 75 to 80% of them are cooks in the kitchen. Those are part of our operational infrastructure. So what is SCOS, our technology? And this is a very special part of what we do. SCOS stands for Smart Kitchen Operating System. It's essentially the OS that powers our end-to-end operations. We call it the G Suite of the kitchen space. The way G Suite focuses on productivity in the workplace, the suite of applications on SCOS focus on productivity in the cloud kitchen space and driving efficiency in the cloud kitchen space. And that efficiency is so that we can drive better economics, profitability, and to deliver a phenomenal consumer experience. Now, why did we build it? Right. So January 2018, I can tell you we didn't start Kitopi to build out tech. That wasn't the plan. We started Kitopi to scale brands, to bring the brands that you love over to you. And January 2018, we hit a massive pain point because I went out there looking for did what most people would do, find something off the shelf. And I went to every POS and kitchen management system you can imagine, trying to just enable what we were trying to do. I went to NCR, Partex, Whirl, Revel, even the regional startups that were forming here. And I had so many conversations, went through so many demos, and we kept on hitting two roadblocks in particular. Roadblock number one was all their software revolved around table management. It didn't revolve around food delivery needs. The food delivery needs, either their features were at its infancy or non-existent at all. And food delivery is very different to table management. In food delivery, you interface with aggregators, you interface with drivers, you package the food, which you don't do for table management. They had all the bells and whistles, right? Splitting checks, managing reservations, and for obvious reasons. It's been the biggest demand for the longest time. So January 2018, we were going live. Nothing was going to change that date, although we didn't have the software. So what did we do? We used the best of the worst that was out there. We hacked around it. We went through 2 to 3 different systems just to get us from A to B. And the stories we had using those systems. I mean, we had some serious limitations, but we just did it because it enabled us to move. It served as a massive learning curve. But at some point, it was just not sustainable, right? And the sort of things that we were doing to hack, and I think these are things that some of you might appreciate as fellow entrepreneurs, is we had limitations in the kitchen where a cook couldn't see more than one brand. Right, so they actually had separate browsers. You see, all the tech that was out there, the notion of multiple brands for a single cook was considered so radical, so unconventional, that I was practically kicked out the room when I was suggesting it to put it on their roadmap, right? And so how did we hack around that? We literally had separate browsers for each brand that we had, and each browser. Can you think of more than 5 browsers? You know, Chrome, Mozilla, Internet Safari, and a few others. Try 20. You know, Opera. I started like listening to, if I knew someone was building a startup browser, he would have my full attention. You can imagine the number of viruses and firewall issues that we had at the time, but we used them so that they can actually see what they had to cook at the time. Needless to say, this became unsustainable, especially when we started crossing borders, when we started crossing to other cities. It just wasn't working out. We realized that if we wanted to really scale and deliver a great customer experience, we had to build out and tailor our own solution. And that's when SCOS became on the roadmap. And that led me to Poland. So why Krakow, why Poland? So having learned from some of my previous failures, I made a very conscious decision, especially after we raised our first series, our Series A, that we were going to be as conscious and wise with this investment to make sure that we really maximize value. I knew that we were building tech. This was the first of its kind solution for the cloud kitchen arena, and we had to build it right, and we had to build it well. So I went there looking for some of the best talent in the world. I remember, for what this might mean to all of you, is I went on HackerRank looking for the best programmers in the world. I was Googling left and right. And I remember HackerRank was actually showing me, you know, based on all the tests, who was outranking by countries and even by nationalities, the best programmers for specific languages and general software development. And then up there on the top 3, Poland was listed. Why did Poland attract me? Well, first of all, it was very accessible, right? Dubai has a direct flight to both Warsaw and to Krakow. So I already knew that, you know, 6-hour flight, I can get on a plane and get there pretty quick. Second, you know, being part of the EU, there are some benefits when it comes to Copyright and Data Protection Act. So I knew that was a layer. And I decided at that point that it's, you know, and it was my starting point of a trip of exploration. I literally put on a backpack, and end of 2018, went out there with 2 main objectives. One, finding software development houses that could just kickstart the work as I build up our own in-house team, and to find a phenomenal partner, a VP of engineering that will join this journey, someone I can really evangelize to join and see what we see in what we do. And I went there for a week, and I came back with both. I went to Warsaw, didn't go to Krakow, spent some time in Warsaw. In Warsaw, having sat with, I must have sat with 30, you know, software development houses. I must have met, you know, the same number of people. I was meeting them in the train stations, in the hotels, in the lobbies, in the between breakfasts, and it was hectic, and it was such an enlightening experience. You know, it's funny enough, the first 2, and I don't know if this is politically correct to say, but the first 2 people I met in Poland, I almost took the flight back. There was a bit of a culture shock, right? I didn't know what to expect. I was sitting down with individuals that were essentially challenging everything I was talking about. They were saying, yeah, no, I don't think this is going to work. No, I can't do that. No, that's not possible. That's not. And I was wondering, I was like, wow, this is, you know, after I saw a second, I wondered if this was a pattern or it was the individual. And then after I kept on meeting, I saw a beauty in this ability to challenge what we were thinking, a super objective mindset, highly calculative, not over promising, not over committing, which is something in my previous experience had been a problem. People just saying, yes, I could do this. But they were actually, it was so thoughtful in terms of how they were dissecting the idea that I had been pitching. And I fell in love with that quality. And I just started, at that point, I became, I wanted to change passports, right? So like it was such a huge benefit. And eventually it landed me in front of our VP of engineering, Marcin, who's on this call. And right there and then I saw his experience, heard his mindset, and I saw such a strong parallel. Marcin had been working on very complex courier logic and courier technology in his previous company. And I just saw a strong parallel between his routing, the complex routing mechanisms in what was a completely different business. And I coincided it with the complexities of the food sector and how food is dissected and travels around such large infrastructures. And I saw that, and I saw such a good fit. Managed to win him over. He joined, worked with a good company in the very beginning, eventually started building out our team. And today we have over 50 phenomenal engineers as part of a 100 person tech team, essentially out of Krakow.
Wow, well, I'm super glad to hear, Marcin, you're a yes man here in that story.
Marcin wasn't a yes man. I had to fly him to Dubai, and we had to, he met the other founders, he saw the infrastructure, and then we converted him into a yes man.
I said no at the beginning because Sam told me you would have to move to Dubai, like I said no, but 2 years later, guess when I'm sitting at.
Yes, but at least it's warm there and not like here, like 10 degrees or something.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the best of the both worlds. So I spent winters here and summer in Poland.
Yeah, that is probably the best approach you can take, but not everyone is so lucky to have this option. So yeah, so Sam, feel free to continue if you want to touch some additional.
So I'll say one thing is the consumer sits at the forefront of everything we do. There was a big discussion when we on our journey of Kitopi. Who is our customer? Is it the brand partners that we license from, or is it the end consumer that we deliver to? We made a very conscious decision to always prioritize the consumer, and it's part of our rules, right? When in doubt, what does the consumer want? When the needs of a brand and a consumer conflicts, prioritize the consumer. And we really try to create this tribal mindset. It's one of our core values. We have 6 core values. This is one of our core values where we really shifted everyone to really think consumer obsession and to really guide some of the decisions we make. And it's a very powerful thing when it comes to breaking down the tasks that we do on a day-to-day basis. We're very early on our journey. I like to say we're on the ground floor of what is going to be a 100-story building. We're growing very, very, very fast. And we've only scratched the surface. So today we're sitting in 4 markets in the MENA region. So we're the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, and KSA. We have Southeast Asia on our roadmap this year. And these are areas that we're looking to expand to. And there's a really powerful network effect that you get as we continuously expand to new countries, when restaurants can really expand their reach to multiple geographies, something that was considered unreal to a lot of the brands that joined. Accelerating their path of growth. So that's a little bit about Kitopia.
Yes, thank you so much, Sam, for that. I think that was like an amazing, introduction to what you do, and it makes much clear picture now, because I was even thinking once that I can establish a brand and just use your cloud kitchen to deliver the food, but now I see that it won't be a lucrative business for me, like based on the model that you have explained. So I think that I first need to have some regular restaurant business and then partner with you. So thank you so much for that. That was like a very interesting story. Like the growth is impressive, and I'm glad that you are still bold on the mission, and you're thinking about about the Burj Khalifa size of the building in terms of growth. So thank you so much for that. And I think, you know, it would be nice maybe for us to have some interactions before we go into the questions. So I know that Paul has prepared the breakout rooms for us. So let's try to, you know, get to know each other a bit more and discuss in the smaller groups, and then we can have like more open discussion later on. Paul, like, feel free to enable the breakout room sessions and explain